Happy Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving is the greatest holiday of all time. Had to start the show off the proper way this week. Again, happy Thanksgiving to all of you. Mike Osti, Cody Nesper here. Mountaineer Report brought to you by WV Sports Now. You can find us on YouTube here. Click on that subscribe button, the notification bell, download the show. You also can find it everywhere you get your podcasts, available on Apple, Spotify, TuneIn, Google Play, and everywhere else that you can listen to podcasts these days. And we are going to touch on the football program. If anything is now different with the football program as rumors continue to circulate and people continue to speculate on the future of Neal Brown and his staff. Although, in the midst of all of that, they are recruiting their butts off, gaining commitments, flipping kids, and one of the assistants is now up for a national award for the top assistant honor. So, ironic to say the least. We are going to touch on all of that, and if anything has changed now that a similar major program, a P4, has now decided to fire a coach who publicly did not want to leave, and if that now potentially sends a domino rally or maybe an isolated incident, we'll touch on all of that, of course. We will get to maybe a fun game with some bowl projections and get to talk about what we think is intriguing and what is not, because there are a lot of bowl projections out there, and none of this probably will come true since last year a trade and a swap between conferences forced West Virginia to be in the Duke's Mayo Bowl, which actually ended up better than the other options. They did win and beat the program that I alluded to in North Carolina that fired their head coach. But we'll do this nonetheless. Then also the basketball program, they're in the Bahamas, but they're playing basketball on a business trip against some quality competition, to say the very least. So, Cody, before we get to all of that, give me your favorite Thanksgiving side dish.
I'm huge on stuffing. I know that might bristle some people, but I'm a big stuffing guy.
Inside or outside the bird?
Outside.
Outside the bird. So do you
Yeah.
not like it inside? Like you have to have it outside?
No, I don't know if I've had it outside much more than inside. I don't know if I've ever actually had it inside more than once or twice.
Okay.
But
I
if
feel like the stuffing snobs out there really want it inside. I do actually prefer inside, but I'll eat it both ways.
But it's like, stuffing, gravy,
Okay.
all on the same plate with mashed potatoes and corn, and I'm a
Got
big
it.
I just mix it all together. And
Yeah,
it's
mix it all together. Yeah. Just
it's
mix it all together. It's all
Yep.
going down the same
Yep.
place. It doesn't matter. Just enjoy yourself. 100%. 100%. Any hot takes for Thanksgiving for you? I'll drop one right now that I'm not a fan of sweet potatoes.
I think turkey gets undue hate.
Okay, I mean, I'm a defender of turkey, but I didn't know that it was getting undue hate. So that's a hot take, I guess, if you have to defend turkey. I will say there's some people out there that like to drop the hot take that they prefer ham over turkey, especially on Thanksgiving, which is a borderline crime. Thanksgiving is all about the turkey and the turkey gods, and I always would take turkey over ham myself.
It's a lot of people say turkey either has no flavor or is dry, and it's like,
yeah, I got to make it right.
That's a skill issue, right? Like,
that's 100%. That's like what we like to call a personal issue. That's a you problem. If you're not making the turkey right, 100%. I'll take dark meat. I'll take light meat. It doesn't matter. I'm an equal opportunity employer when it comes to turkey and my Thanksgiving meal. So happy Turkey Day to all of you. You got to enjoy it. Make sure you respect this holiday before you fully get to Christmas. And we now will actually do some sports talk for you. So we've been talking about this. Everyone's been talking about this. The fans aren't happy. They want to change. Neal Brown is still the head coach. They do have a bowl game coming up. They have one game, as we're speaking now, in front of that to end the regular season. That game could allow them to win 7 games. And then if they win the bowl game, that could allow them to win 8 games. Only one less than last year's overall total that universally everyone believed was a successful quality year. They did win the bowl game last year. This year's bowl game, it's certainly up in the air where they're going to go. It'll likely be a little lower tier than even what it was last year, but there are some possibilities that would make it just as attractive. If this program ends up with 8 wins, they end up with a conference victory over Texas Tech to close the year, that one in a tough place to play on the road in Lubbock. They get 6 conference wins, which is just not easy in general. And to do that back-to-back years in the Big 12 for the first time would almost be kind of outstanding based on how much of a roller coaster year this season has been, with signs popping up all over Morgantown looking to get Neal Brown fired, and then other ones countering that with keep Neal Brown. Would that change anything for you if they're able to end this strong? They're able to do that. They have that number of win bar, because in all reality, most seasons, if you win 8 games on a regular basis, certainly if you do it back-to-back years, you're not going to get fired from most programs. But this is year 6 for Neal Brown. This is a dip from last year, and the fan base is fed up that they may be risking no one showing up to games next year by keeping him.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I think the biggest part about 8 wins is, and I just kind of realized this the other day, even if they just beat Tech, that's 4 wins in 5 games to close the regular season. And
Yep.
then the bowl, it's 5 wins in the last 6 games. Like, that's pretty good, because after that Kansas State loss, like, it very, you lose, you get blown out at home by Kansas State, and you have to go on the road 2 weeks in a row. Very easily could have just the wheels fallen off, and this team ends up with 4 wins, and right, but like, to rebound so nicely and to win a bunch of games at the end of the year, like, that does do something for me. And it does shift a little bit. And obviously, it's not, Texas Tech. We keep saying it's one of the toughest trips in the conference,
They may not win
and
that 100%.
and
Yeah.
the
Right.
bowl game could, we have no idea what that opponent's going to look like. So it is,
100%.
there are some unknowns right now, but like, finishing the year as strong as they, are right now, that is something, and that does speak to a head coach, not losing the locker room, when you
Yeah.
more or less get knocked out of substantial championship contention. They're technically still alive, but
Right.
it's on a
Right.
big technicality.
Right. It's not a big technicality, so much so that Neal Brown publicly said he's not talking about it with his players. He does
Yeah.
not understand it, and he's not even dealing with it unless someone calls him and says, "Hey, you're going to go to Dallas."
So it's
So,
to
yeah.
to have those disappointing back-to-back losses to Iowa State and Kansas State, and also your starting quarterback gets hurt.
Right.
To not
Right.
lose the locker room
Right.
even an inch, and to end the season strong, potentially with a bowl win, you win 5 out of last 6. Like, that's something, and that's momentum in the next season, and it is something, like you said, 6
Yeah.
Big 12 wins, that gets you into contention for the Big 12 championship, right?
Yeah,
And
and yes, 100% everything you're saying is factual. I think the issue is, for most people, if everything you said was the case in year 3 or even year 4, it probably wouldn't be an argument for anyone with a sound mind to be keeping him. You're not going to, and there was a debate at that point, but obviously the program was not doing this. If they were coming off a Duke's Mayo Bowl and 9 wins and 6 conference wins, and then 6 conference wins back-to-back years, and then 8 wins and maybe another bowl win, and it was year 3 or 4, then yeah, you would be keeping Neal Brown 9 times out of 10, unless for some crazy reason some home run hire comes aboard and money's not an issue. But this is year 6, and you are going into year 7. 7 years at one school is a long time in this day and age. And yes, you are painting a picture that they maybe are taking a step, or at least consistent. If they're going to say that they can pull 7, 8, 9 wins on a regular basis, that would be your bar these 2 years. And you are ending strong. He is absolutely, I can confirm this, I think everyone would. He has not lost the locker room. Those players want him back. They love playing for him. He is still, as we're speaking, we may even be missing one as we're recording this because it's been so constant the last 24 hours. He is still convincing recruits. I mean, Cody, they're on social media. They're aware. If they search WVU football, they're going to see everyone wants the coach fired, and then the coach is going to call them and say, "Come aboard," him and his staff, obviously, and they're going to say yes, or they're changing their mind when they already had a commitment. Some of these players, yeah, they're getting flipped from MAC schools, but one of them had an offer from Nebraska that's still on the table, and he's saying no Matt Rule in Nebraska, who also is turning around and you're rushing the field, and yes, Neal Brown in West Virginia. I mean, there has to be some confidence that maybe they are believing with what you're saying. Maybe they're thinking, oh, if this was 2 weeks ago, okay, but they're not going to fire him with how the team is playing. And if they would end strong, and maybe he's telling them, hey, I'm getting word that I'm going to likely stay. He's talking about what he's going to tell us in media in December. He's talking about National Signing Day. The program's getting things ready for that. We're getting emails for that. Brown's involved in all of that. It doesn't feel like, outside of if you go on X, that he's getting
Right.
fired. I'll just
Right.
put you that way. If you go on X or Twitter, it feels like he's gone, and all the articles, mostly from fans trying to aggregate, are just, he's gone, here's the options, etc. And we discussed last show, a lot of that is misreporting off of people throwing out opinions and saying a guy's a candidate. But everywhere else, it doesn't. I mean, even nationally, it seems that people are coming to terms with the Brown might be staying aboard. Whether that's the right call or not is a different story. And I guess, to depart a little bit from what you're saying, I agree. 8 wins, 6 conference wins. Last year was 9. You got to keep him at West Virginia. If it wasn't about money and you were able to do a full national search, and I do think Ren could have success doing a full-on national search, I probably would pull the trigger. You're going into year 7. That's a big difference for me, and I would like to see Ren Baker in a full-on national search. He had success in men's basketball, had success in women's basketball. He's had success in freaking volleyball. He does have success in national searches, and I think a head coach could be convinced from him to come aboard. I just would love to see what he can do at a national search. He did not hire Neal Brown. He's inherited him. But if I had to bet money, I probably would bet that Neal Brown's staying right now, based on what I'm hearing and how it feels.
Yeah. Well, you know the saying, where there's smoke, there's fire.
Right.
I've kind of stopped smelling smoke. Right.
That's sure.
Like I really think the temperature's been turned way down over the last month of games. And like you're right. Like outside of fans online, like I don't think there's been any even substantial rumors in the slightest about anything. But it
Not
is funny.
substantial ones.
It,
No.
it, it is funny to see fans online are acting like he's gone, right? Like are acting like
100%.
decisions have been made and he's fired and who's the next coach going to be?
Yeah.
And I'm with you at this point. I don't see him being gone. I see him as the coach of the Mountaineers in 2025.
And I also, because part of that is, I think we both know the program does not really want to get rid of him. He's
Right.
very well liked there. Ren Baker does like him. He's still very young, so they believe that he has potentially not hit his peak as a coach in his career, which is possible. The man's 44. People act like he's 64. He's not. The guy's getting fired or 64. Kurt Cinetti, who obviously would be a slam dunk hire from what he's doing at Indiana if he somehow would come, he signed an extension. He's not coming, but he's 63, 64 years old. He's 20 years older than Brown. They may be thinking that there's plenty of time for Brown to be what those guys are. He has another 20 plus years in his career. We don't want to see it happen elsewhere. And maybe it wouldn't. And again, I totally get the fans are totally out on this because you are going to year 7. The big wins are not there. The ranked wins are not there. The record against ranked opponents, it's not good. You get embarrassed to Penn State. You don't just lose. That's okay. But you get embarrassed. You blow the brawl when right now all the calculations are saying they're very similar teams. They're right next to each other in the FPI. Pitt has now lost 4 in a row. It clearly has been proven that they were taking advantage of a schedule early in the season. And if they would have had a loss to you, they never would have been ranked. So you almost single-handedly get them ranked when you can't get in the AP poll. That, I know, annoys and aggregates the fan base and aggravates the fan base when you're going into year 7. But my mentality really has moved to this, and it's pretty simple. I get it's year 6 going into year 7. I don't know if there's a higher ceiling with Neal Brown, but I do believe there could be a higher ceiling with the program. I've articulated many, many times. If Ames, Iowa can get you enough money to contend in the Big 12, so can West Virginia. And historically speaking, West Virginia is arguably the best program right now in the current Big 12. It's a wide open field. You win it, you're in. It's not going away in terms of the automatic bid anytime soon, even if you think the conference is 4th or maybe not deserving. You're going to at least get in, even if not with the bye. So I do think there is a door open and West Virginia can contend. I do believe that. But and even what Country Road Trust is doing and NIL, et cetera, they need more money, but that's one of the best NIL companies around in terms of what they're trying to do. So I do believe you can. But maybe there's a ceiling with Neal Brown. Maybe there's a peak with Neal Brown. But my opinion now is if you can hit a slam dunk, if you and I know there's polarizing opinions of Jimbo Fisher, but I do think he'd be a recruiting boom. He has won a national title. If you can convince Jimbo to come and not break the bank, I have an article ready. I'm not fully, sold on the Rich Rod noise His career after West Virginia was not nearly what it was at WVU. Yes, he's doing well at Jacksonville State, but that's a Group of 5 conference. His strength of schedule is not even close to Big 12 play. Even if he wins that, he would have around the same win total as Neal Brown when you think about it. And he has won 10-win season from WVU. So if you can hit a home run and get somebody of note that's really flashy and somebody that I think everyone universally would like, and those two guys are even polarizing, sure, go ahead. If you can convince Nick Saban for 2 years and then go retirement and Pat McAfee got money for him, sure. But if you're just looking at Group of 5 coaches or getting a guy who is ranked at UNLV, for example, which is very similar to what Neal Brown was at Troy in 2019 when you hired him, if you're looking at that vibe, then you almost might as well stay the course, because you're then going to be spending $20 million from a buyout to new coach to everything else. You're losing all the players. You're re-recruiting. You're dealing with a winter that is incredibly busy and chaotic. You're probably taking a year or two as a step back. You're rebuilding again like you were 6 years ago, and all for a Neal Brown 2024, 2025 version, all for the new Neal Brown of this current day. That doesn't make sense to me. And it almost seems like that might be where Ren Baker in the program is right now, which is why, if you've noticed, once Signetti re-upped, and I've got word of this, that Rich Rod does not want to deal with WVU again, and he's kind of happy with what he's doing in his old age. Once that kind of, some feel that way, and some have been told that, and myself included, and then you're seeing everything else going on in college football, it feels like that smoke kind of died out. And it almost like, okay, maybe we're not so bad with Neal Brown if the team is winning. Last point on this, Cody. Mac Brown, as we mentioned earlier, he did get fired from North Carolina. He has the national championship. He actually is the winningest coach all time in North Carolina football history from his original tenure to when he came back. It's been rough this year and embarrassing. Recruiting numbers are down. But a year ago, he was in the Duke's Mayo Bowl and lost to West Virginia. And if he had Drake May, he might have won that game. They didn't have their first-round quarterback. He never had a peak major big-time year there, but he's been consistent on at least a bowl appearance type of thing. He also publicly said he wanted to come back and wanted to retire there, and they basically said, we don't want you anymore. Does that send any ripple effect or cause any impact to you, or make you think, okay, Power Fours like West Virginia were staying put because of the new money deal, but now that North Carolina made this move, maybe that's not fully true, and this could be a domino rally that, say, if West Virginia loses to Texas Tech, they then could pull the trigger like the Tar Heels did, because they almost embarrassed their all-time winningest coach in program history. So if that happened, then Neal Brown could get fired.
Yeah. I think the ripple that it creates for me is just to show that this seems like a pretty weak hiring cycle.
Yeah.
Like you kind of touched on it. Like who are the big names right now? It's all G5 coaches. Like if you think last year it was like Elko from Duke going to Texas A&M, and this year like Mac Brown got fired this morning.
There's only 2 active coaches right now, because Jim Harbaugh's in the NFL with a national title.
And it's
Nick Saban's retired. Dabo Swinney and Kirby Smart. They're the only ones with a ring.
Wow. That's and like Mac Brown got fired this morning, in the ESPN article on candidates to replace him, it was all G5 guys, and then like Dave Clawson from Wake Forest was on there.
Yeah.
And it's like, is he the most attractive Power 4 coach right now that is like reasonably available? Yeah. And it's like he had
bring up Koto Nicky from Penn State too, but like,
but again, that's again that is a coordinator the biggest name right now. So that's where I'm like, that's where I'm like, I think this is a cycle where, and you're talking about like you got to get a slam dunk. This is a cycle where I don't think there are a lot of slam dunks, and I think there are a lot of options where you get Neal Brown from 6 years ago, and it's worse.
And I do think, as much as people are saying, oh, if you keep Neal Brown, like I've had people say, Mike, you're not wrong, but if they keep Neal Brown and it's RMU week 1, the fans aren't going to show up, and the university needs money. They do count on the $2 million they make from each one of those home games. I get all that, Cody, but based on what you're saying, and I want to ask those people that are saying that, if that's your only sales pitch to make this move, if you can't get a home run higher, are you going to go for another Group of 5 coach?
Yeah.
If you're not going to go for another Group of 5 coach, and you don't want to go to a game for Neal Brown, you're just not going to go because
Yeah.
there is no home run hire out there to get. And off the schedule next year, Neal Brown or Odom or Kotelnicki, they could start 3-0 if they beat Pitt at home in the brawl. You got RMU, you're at least 1-0. So yes, it could be favorable for a new guy, but it also could be favorable for Neal Brown and the players that Neal Brown has that the fans want to keep, like a Traylon Ray when he gets healthy, like a Jaheim White, like Josiah Trotter that turned down Clemson to come to you. These are guys that are likely able to come back next year, that if you have money to bring them back, you're going to want to have them. And if Neal Brown's fired, it doesn't matter about the money. They're all going to go. They're all going to go. And then, yes, a new coach may bring in his players, but this is not like you're going to go ahead and, steal Deion Sanders if you think he's the big sexy name out there that maybe could float around. I've already seen people try to throw that out there for North Carolina. Why would he leave Colorado to come to you? If he's going to leave, he'd go to the NFL probably, especially with a Cowboys job out there. And even if you get a sexy name, are the players that guy brings going to do enough for you? Like if Odom comes, who are you getting from his roster that's better than Traylon Ray and Jaheim White that you'd rather have?
Right.
Like you're basically deciding between that roster and him, hypothetically, or Neal Brown and your star players. You're going to look for a new QB again. Nico wouldn't stay. A lot of people that love that's just like hypothetical, hypocritical opinions, Cody, because people that want Nico to be the guy and love Nico also want Brown fired. Like that doesn't work. Yeah. So I just don't know how all of this works this year, and it may lead you. Maybe you don't want to, but it may lead you to be forced with another year of Neal Brown. And I am sure that as the buyout keeps going down, if he loses next year, then they could fire him then, and maybe there'll be more options. But you look at this year, they also could be thinking, Cody, with how funky it's freaking been, and they didn't know this at the time, so I can't fully call this a choke job. But if West Virginia would have beat Baylor, they'd be in the driver's seat to go to Dallas right now, despite everything that's happened. So they could easily think if they flip one game with an easier out-of-conference schedule, that they're in there next year. Because there's no giant still in this conference, and they got the bid at least for one more year. That could be a mentality. And you're just spending a lot of money for a similar coach.
And I think it's interesting. I was thinking about this earlier. Think about how different fans would feel right now if you just flipped the brawl.
That's what I said earlier. That flips both years, 100%.
Like if you do that, like even if the Big 12 stuff is the same and they're not really in contention,
right.
Like if you just flip the brawl, think about how much better people would feel right now.
100%.
And it's not even about the number of wins, right? Like we could get to 9 wins again. I don't think that's substantially different than 8.
Right.
But it's just
the vibe.
When you lose Penn State, when you lose Pitt, and then when you lose the 2 home games against ranked opponents, that's why people are so sour. And I do think that you mentioned the national media. I do think that like we're so close to it and fans are so close to it that we are to a degree blinded to things that have gone right this year and things that are a success this year and things that Neal does do well. Like how about this? Neal's floor at West Virginia is 5 wins. He's done it twice. Like his worst seasons are 5 wins. Like
and yes, that's true because Dana Holgerson's worst season was a 4-win year. Rich Rodriguez's worst season was a 3-win year, right?
What did Pat Narduzzi bottom out at last year? 3?
3. He was 3-9. Yeah. And because of how much he bottomed out last year, if you look at the overall win total the last 3 years, Pitt and West Virginia are damn close, despite the Pitt of peak with Kenny Pickett, because when Pitt bottoms out, they bottom out worse. And when West Virginia bottoms out regularly, it's just, it's that 5-win year. And unlike in 2022, where they had finished 5-7 and missed a bowl, they did finish strong enough this year to not only get a bowl, but could have another 8-win year. Those are all the reasons that would boost you if you're Ren Baker to sit and have pause and think, okay, I can keep Neal Brown. He's not a knee-jerk fan who's firing you every bad play call. So that all goes into Neal Brown's credit. But I do think, to be fair to that, though, nationally, I mean, there are Pitt fans that want Narduzzi fired, and he did win a conference title. So the national perspective and the fan today, and this is an indictment maybe of fans in general, is very knee-jerk now. That's why I said I think the difference of all of this would be Brown's going to year 7. That's the issue. Brown's going into year 7, and there's never been a big year. And Cody, I didn't want to make this whole show on this, so we'll move off of this soon. But I think the issue is you're almost able to have a really bad bottom out year. Like, I'll tell you from my sources, Pat Narduzzi's going nowhere. He's going nowhere. Even with the new AD, he's going nowhere. But because their money is not much better, they just fired an AD because they didn't get enough donation money. You're not going to have a new AD come in with no more donation money, fire a coach who won you a conference title, and then think you're going to go spend $20 million a year on money that you also don't have. They're in the same boat. It's not going to happen. But fans are able to feel better about Narduzzi than they say could about Neal Brown, because when Narduzzi's had enough of a crew to really peak, he won the ACC.
Mm-hmm.
He was in a major bowl game.
Mm-hmm.
Brown's peak, like, yes, you're right. His floor is better than the other coaches we're talking about, better than even recent memory at WVU. His peak is not close.
Right.
His peak is the Duke's Mayo Bowl.
Right.
The peak of Dana was the Orange Bowl in the midst of a dynasty that is an historic game that is repeated nationally forever. He had another 10-win season. The peak of Rich Rodriguez is continuously contending for a national championship in multiple seasons. Neal Brown is not even flirting with either one of those examples. And if Neal Brown had a 10-11 win year and they were vying for a Big 12 title last year, because they did blow those games to Oklahoma State and Houston, if they won those games and they had an 11-win year last year, I think everyone would be saying, okay, yeah, this year's down. You got embarrassed at home a lot, but damn, you just won the Big 12 a year ago. We're cool.
Yeah.
That's not what happened. They won the Duke's Mayo Bowl off 9 wins. That's not 11 in the Big 12 title. And then you get to this year, and it is year 7. So I think that's why it's a little different. But if you don't have a home run hire and all the money you'd have to invest, I just don't see an option of bringing in a group of 5 guy with no power resume or unsuccessful power resume. For example, if you go back to the Missouri days, or anyone else you'll want to mention, or an assistant like Kotelnicki that everyone loves. I don't see how that's a slam dunk success story. I don't see how Rich Rodriguez is a slam dunk success story based on what he's done in the power conferences since West Virginia. I just don't see a slam dunk guarantee win. Even Jimbo, you bring him aboard, he lost a lot of Texas A&M, and the era that we're in now is different than it was when he won at Florida State. So I can poke holes in every damn thing. I do think maybe Mac is an isolated incident, but if you don't have that guy, I just feel like you might as well stand pat. And I get that it's not nearly been good enough or acceptable enough with Neal Brown, because we did this in the press box last week. Rich Rodriguez missed, if you want to say bowl game as your minimum bar, Rich Rod missed a bowl game once. It was his first year that was really bad, the 3-win year. Dana missed a bowl game once. Don Nalen missed, I think, 5 or 6, but that's over 20 years. Neal Brown has missed a bowl game multiple times, and we're into year 6. That could be a problem for you as well. Before we get to basketball, I do want to play a little game here real quick, Cody. There's a lot of bowl projections out there. And again, Mountaineer Report here with WV Sports Now, available wherever you get podcasts. Cody Nesper, Mike Oste, and give you some options, some projections out there for some bowl games for the Mountaineers. And you give me on a scale of 1 to 10 how intrigued you are by this possible matchup. So intrigued.
Okay.
So first option is Brett McMurphy, who I've been citing most of the year. I do respect him as a career journalist, a national guy. He does it the right way. He's not throwing hot takes on a general basis. Right now, he has the Independence Bowl against Army in Shreveport, Louisiana, December 28th. Army's been great this year, but it's an easier schedule. They now have lost the game. You're no longer facing an undefeated team. That's a repeat bowl appearance for Neal Brown, at least for the opponent against Army. He's actually already beat Army once at WVU. Where are you for that possibility?
That'd be like a 2.
Yeah.
That'd be like just who cares?
Yeah. Athlon Sports Independence Bowl against Tulane, also the same day.
That'd be pretty good. That'd be like a 5 or a 6, because Tulane's been good.
Okay. I do think 5 or 6 is fair. I'm going to tell you that I feel like the first one against Army, if I'm just giving you the fan perspective, just to do it for him, would be a 0, because he already beat Army once. And this would probably be a 2 or a 3. I think people would just pound the table at it being a group of 5. They want to play a power team. And if you remember when we were both at that presser last year, Neal Brown's made it clear he wants power conference opponents. He does not want to play a group of 5 team in the bowl. So I think Neal would not even be happy with it. CBS Sports, the Gasparilla Bowl against Florida on December 20th. So it's an earlier bowl game, which people maybe think is a little insulting, any game played before Christmas. Works better for my schedule, by the way. But it's against Florida in Florida. I mean, that is a legit program who now is improving. And that is a program that there's even a past bowl game, historically speaking, obviously that 94 Sugar Bowl after the Mountaineers 93 season. Where are you? That's the most intriguing I've seen so far. Where are you?
Yeah, I mean, I'd give that like a 9 because
Yeah.
big time program and the difference, easy flight down to Florida for that.
Yeah.
Ton of
100%.
direct flights to Florida, probably not Shreveport.
Right. Yeah.
um,
A little
so
cheaper, direct flights,
an
SEC team.
easy trip,
Yeah.
a better date if you actually wanted to go.
Yeah.
You're not having to mess around with your Christmas stuff. Um,
Yep.
and like you said, an interesting opponent. Billy Napier's kind of in the same boat as Neal, so
Yeah.
nice little symmetry there. Yeah, that's you said it. That's the most interesting one I've seen so far.
Yeah. 100%. And I even think if you polled the players, a lot of them are from Florida. They
Oh
would
yeah,
probably
yeah.
love that. I think and here's another end of this. We know why Milan wants to play in the bowl game, regardless of where it is. A lot of these players, certainly the seniors, just may choose not to. Milan maybe even be still convinced by the program to sit him down and say it's not best for you. You're an NFL player. He's likely the slam dunk NFL guy, and there's nobody else like that. But being in Florida against Florida, I think you would get Green and company to all say, we don't care. This is an unsuccessful year. They would be
Yeah,
excited and they would want to play. I think
yeah,
you would get a lot of them wanting to play in that game. And that really would suck for Traylon Ray not to be able to play. Obviously, he's
yeah,
heard he will not be playing, but that would have been a game where I think he really would love to have played. A lot of those kids, let's be real, they grew up wanting to go to Florida, to go to Miami, and they're at West Virginia because those schools maybe didn't want him. Maybe they pulled an offer late. Maybe the offer wasn't as legit as the WVU in terms of interest. They would get up for that game, to say the least. Sporting News also has Armed Forces Bowl against Arkansas. So that is a power program. There's history there with Arkansas, but it's a long, long time ago, and
yeah,
they're kind of floundering as well. That's December 27th, so that's not great for your holiday.
yeah. I don't even know where's that one at.
Armed Forces. I believe Baltimore, maybe Annapolis. That's just off the top of my head. That's actually
That's
not here on where I'm pulling this from.
um,
I believe Annapolis. I can
that
remember.
would be a drivable trip. Arkansas isn't sexy, certainly. Um, that'd be like another 6, I think. I would actually,
Okay.
I would probably. I was
No,
gonna
I'm
say
sorry. Fort Worth, Texas. I'm wrong.
Fort
Fort
Worth.
Worth,
So
Texas.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
that's even worse. Like I would almost think people would prefer Tulane because at least they're a program that's been good. Like
They're better. Yeah, better recently. I
Arkansas.
mean, Arkansas was like 4 years ago. They were good.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean that would be a test of really whether you care about Power Four, even if it's a worse program.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean Fort Worth, Texas. If it was Baltimore, we would definitely go, and I would be able to drive. But yeah, Fort Worth, Texas. I don't know. That's kind of
Especially
rough.
two days after Christmas to drive or to fly to
Yeah, yeah.
down
I'm
there.
definitely
Like
not going in that time frame. Yeah.
that's not that wouldn't be a super fun trip. I
Yeah,
think.
and I've seen a couple different projections that involve this school. One of them I do see is the First Responders Bowl, so it's a minor bowl game. I believe there's a couple other bowls that were possibilities here, but USA Today and ESPN both have West Virginia paired, and this is the only one that I think argues with the Florida game. They have them paired with Oklahoma. Oklahoma. Obviously, Oklahoma beat up on the Mountaineers a lot while they've been in the Big 12. They did have the win with Garrett Green coming in at the end a couple years ago. Obviously, West Virginia historically has that major Fiesta Bowl win over the Sooners, and they may never play again, Cody. They may never play again with having realigned in
Yep.
Oklahoma out of the conference. They may never play again if it's not the Big 12. And maybe these players would like to make a statement to an Oklahoma team that's very down, but that's the problem. What kind of statement is it? It's an
Yeah.
Oklahoma team that's pretty down. Where are you? Is that more or less intriguing than the Florida possibility if they play Oklahoma, regardless of the bowl game?
In terms of just opponent, like if the location and the date are no factor, Oklahoma would be a 10 for me because
Okay.
I think fans would like that one the most. I think if you win, even though it's a down year, I think there is still some animosity that like, hey, you're not too good for the Big 12. Like, how dare you think you'll just jump ship? And I do
Okay.
think there would be some good some good feelings if you beat them, and you show like, take that, like you ran away from the conference, but we still beat you. That even more so than Florida. Like, but that's where that would be location and date. I think would
Yeah,
play.
so USA Today has that First Responders Bowl, Oklahoma in Dallas, and then ESPN has Armed Forces Bowl, which is Fort Worth, Texas, so near Dallas, same area, Armed Forces Bowl. So it's similar type of bowl game in the similar area. So you're getting on a plane either way.
Yeah,
And that, let's be real, Dallas, Texas, a lot of Oklahoma fans are Cowboys fans. Florida, you're in Florida. Both of them are road games. You're going to have
yeah,
majority Oklahoma and Florida fans at either one of those, even though Mountaineer fans travel. This is not a BCS New Year's Six Bowl that I think everyone's going to pay to go to. I don't know if Mountaineer fans will travel for those minor bowl games. That's the only argument. I'm personally maybe more intrigued by Florida just because I've seen Oklahoma, covered Oklahoma, done so much with Oklahoma. Like, and I'd rather go to Florida. I think, like, if I'm picking, maybe I'm selfish covering it. So I think I'd lean Florida, give that a 10,
yeah,
maybe give Oklahoma a 9. The rest of them are all 2s and 3s. No one cares. But it's interesting because the bowl projections are all over the place. Some are having some fun and some are not. And it's likely that the ones that are not that fun are closer to being accurate. But I do know that some of the projections I'll put out there, they take into account trades and different things that could go down, like what got the Mountaineers in the Dukes Mayo Bowl last year, whereas Brett McMurphy just goes pretty much straight lace. He's not going to take any of that into consideration. So that's
yeah.
why it's all over the place.
I remember the initial projection last year before the Duke's Mayo Bowl. It
Yeah.
wasn't very good either. I don't remember what it was. It
No,
was
they
like,
weren't good. No, they
yeah, it was
weren't.
like a little. It was a third tier bowl against a supposed to be a lesser opponent, and then they obviously got to, like you said,
Yeah.
trade into the Duke's Bowl. It was
I
one of the
even
big
think
ones.
Toledo was a possible opponent at one time, if I remember
Yeah,
this
it was.
correctly. Like
Yeah,
it was like a random group of 5 that had a random good year that is
yeah,
not normally good. That the fans would have, unless you won by 40, it would have been a horrible opponent.
yeah.
Yeah, that, and I remember also a lot of fans wanted the Pop Tarts Bowl that they could have had
Pop
a
Tarts
chance
Bowl.
at the week earlier, and that was obviously part of that issue too. Is the Bulls do not like to send a team to a place they already were 3 weeks earlier, which they already played and beat UCF in Orlando. That's at that
Yeah,
same stadium earlier in that season. So that was also part of why that wasn't a thing. And it led to them being traded and going into what everyone was happy with for the year
yeah,
in Charlotte for the Dukes Mayo Bowl. But it's likely not everyone's going to be happy with this. Nor will everyone be happy with any of these decisions that we're ever discussing on this show with the football program, whether it be Brown, the bowl, or whatever. So we'll put a pin in all that now. The basketball program, they're in the Bahamas. So no matter what, they're happy. They're in the Bahamas. What do you need to see from them in the Bahamas? We talked about this last show. The only loss is to Pitt in the backyard brawl, and Pitt is now arguing for a national ranking. Let's be honest right now. They do have a loss now. They lost Wisconsin, but that's a ranked team, and they were close in that game and almost beat them. That maybe looks like, if you want to give a college football term, a quality loss for WVU, but it was a beatdown. They were never
yeah,
in the game, and the other wins are against lesser teams. Iona doesn't show you too much. Gonzaga, Arizona, there are legit teams in the Bahamas with you. Right away, it's going to be rough against Gonzaga, but what do you need to see? Is it how the team plays? Is it a certain way they play? Do you need to clip off a certain amount of wins before you get to Big 12 play? What are you watching for in the Bahamas?
yeah. I think the big thing, um, I, you would want for them to shoot well, because of course the part of the reason Pitt was so bad was because they shot terrible, and it was their first road game. So I do think, like, hey, are you going to go on the road all year and not be able to shoot, or maybe
Yeah.
you're down in the Bahamas, maybe it's all right. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, they have to win or they have to come in second place or blah 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 blah. No, like, let's be real, they're huge underdogs to Gonzaga,
Yeah, 100%.
as
Yeah,
they should be. Like,
as,
here's my, like, don't
as
get
they should be.
don't get blown out immediately to Gonzaga, right? Like, don't go down 20 in the first 15 minutes.
Yep.
Like, if you lose by 20 at the end, that's gonna happen. But like, keep
Yeah.
it competitive. Like, be within 10,
because
15
Pitt was
at
never
half.
competitive.
Yeah.
Pitt was never competitive at
Yes.
all the whole game. And I think the major thing to look toward, Dries talked about this, how do they respond? If you're
Right.
down 9-0 to Gonzaga, are you going to end up losing by 20 and be down 20 the whole game? Or can you fight and make it a game that we can watch and there's some semblance of competitiveness in there? And if it's the result where you're going to get down from 9 to 20 and then you're going to lose by 30, that gives you pause to like, okay, they can beat group of 5, or I'm sorry, they can beat mid-major teams.
Yeah.
Got a football mindset here. They can beat mid-major teams, or they can beat lesser than that, but that's it. They can't even beat major teams that are good, let alone Big 12 play.
Yeah. And I think, if we go into Thursday and Friday, like Thursday's not going to be easy either. You got either Indiana or Louisville.
Yeah.
Like, I think, like, just win one game, right? Like, at least one. Like, I think that would be good. To come back 0-3, would really be bad. And that to me would kind of be like, okay, this, they're not going to be on the bubble. Like,
Yeah.
the-
I mean, then you're
the-
under 500 overall. Too.
yeah. And it's that, so like, as long as you can win one, I think that's a fine trip. As long as you're not getting killed in the other two games. But like I said, like the biggest thing for me isn't to see wins and losses. It's just like, are they going to shoot okay, or is it going to be, no pun intended, a crapshoot every night?
You can intend the pun there. You can intend the pun. I almost feel like I would have felt better if you did intend the pun. Yeah, they going to shoot well. Are they going to find a third option that you've been writing about? Because it sounds like DeVries is not even trying to find a third option, but we've kind of both agreed that they should maybe look for one. And how are you going to respond if Tucker DeVries is taken out of a game? Because Gonzaga's good. They got a Hall of Fame coach. They're smart. I'm sure they're sitting around right now over turkey saying, what we're going to do, their pre-Thanksgiving dinner, we're going to take Tucker DeVries out of the game. We're going to try to isolate DeVries and Small. It's the same thing Jeff Capel said. And then once they do that, they're going to really go at him early in the game, force him into bad shots like Tucker took early in the brawl. Can anyone else step up? Or is it just disaster? That if Tucker doesn't score 20, they have no chance. Is that the rule this year? I think you're going to find that out in the Bahamas too. But it's hard to expect more than one win when you know the schedule and who they're playing.
Yeah.
The issue is, Cody, if they come out of there with only one win or don't have any wins, I'm going to be serious and say they have to clip off the rest of the 2024 schedule before 2025 and win pretty much all of those to even be a bubble team. Because I'm figuring they're going to lose the majority of the Big 12 games, meaning like they're going to be below 500 in Big 12 play. If I'm expecting that, they gotta win every other game before the new year if they're losing these games in the Bahamas.
Yeah. No, I don't disagree with that at all.
Just math. I
They
mean,
get the first game back is Georgetown,
right?
and I think that's kind of the last. Yeah, that's like the last difficult non-conference game. The other ones are by games, and then they start Big 12 play with Kansas. So
That's
certainly,
what I'm saying. Like you, it doesn't get and then I believe there's a streak there. I believe of 4 ranked teams in a row if they still held their ranking at some point in 2025. But yeah, you have Kansas. I mean, Kansas is weirdly the team that they actually are normally competitive against. But like beating, as we saw last year, beating them and then having the other ones be losses doesn't do anything for you.
Yeah. So I think certainly you want a bunch of momentum going into Big 12 play. So I don't disagree with you at all. Your non-conference games are extremely winnable. So
right,
no matter what happens in the Bahamas, I think you want to come back home and take care of business, and then get into your conference schedule as strong as possible.
Yeah, and to be real, if it wasn't year one, and if it wasn't year one where there's not as much pressure to be on the bubble or to make the NCAA tournament, if it was any other year, like if this was a normal Huggins year, for example, maybe a down roster, but isn't year one of a new coach with Darren DeVries, I would say at minimum you got to win 2 of these games in the Bahamas.
Yeah.
If it wasn't year one, you'd have to get 2 W's.
Yeah.
Because you the other games you're mentioning, yes, you've got to win all of those, but Ken Palm's not going to care about any of those wins. If you come out of here with 1 win or 0 out of the Bahamas, you're going to enter Georgetown with like a 90 Ken Palm. None of those games will help you. The Ken Palm is just not good. You're fighting the computers.
Yeah.
So when you're dealing with such a bad schedule or a bad conference, and I mean bad in terms of difficult, It's obviously very, very good,
Yeah.
but that's bad for you because you're in year one and you're likely going to lose some of those games. And unless you shock the world in Big 12 play, which is just very, very hard to believe. You talked to Darren DeVries today. Soccer team has now lost after their kind of rough road seeding wise. The women's team is still winning. They're number 13 now in the AP poll. Maybe they'll win by 80 next game and be able to, crack the top 10. But obviously they haven't played a tough strength of schedule either. They're going to get into the meat of their schedule soon. And when they get those wins, then they will definitely really get in there. As we get to a holiday, we're giving you one show this week here. It's kind of a longer show than normal. A lot going on outside of just football and basketball that everyone talks about. But, those are the two major things that are the focus. Do you have any other comments? Any Thanksgiving comments here about Mountaineer athletics in any way? Or if you want to bring up about West Virginia high school football, you can, because you covered it before, and they also were in the news, and we did touch on it here on this show, and they got their playoffs underway, and
Yeah.
I believe no road team has won.
Yeah, I guess if I guess we should all be thankful that the high school playoffs are happening finally.
Yeah.
That's, if you're thankful for anything on Thursday, be thankful for that.
Yeah, because you never would have thought that'd be in question until this year. Like, will it happen? Will it not happen? We did a whole show on it, and it is happening. Did you like how that was decided?
I did. Yeah. I like.
You think that was the fairest way to decide things? Because there was a lot of controversy on whether that was fair or not.
Yeah. I kind of a couple weeks ago we talked about this. Like,
Yeah.
I like the court just said, hey, the SAC has supreme authority to do basically what they want.
Right.
I think that's the best way, and I think that shuts down any argument in the future if any team gets the idea that they want to sue. I think it's the cleanest way to just say, I don't care if you don't like what they decide.
Right.
What did the exact wording was like? The SAC has authority beyond question to make decisions.
Which there's no
Which
point of them if they don't.
Yes.
They should. They
Yes.
are. That is the entire point of them. They are the governing body.
Yes.
It's like the NCAA doesn't really have much authority in college football. They should have more
Yes.
because that's the point of them. Yes. So you may not like the decisions. Like, if we just had governing bodies, I think we'd all dislike a lot of decisions.
Yes.
But it feels weird to have a governing body and then have them have no ability to make decisions like that and have lawsuits and all of that. So that does make sense. But it will also be interesting if there's ever a change of format, because as we talked about before on another show, when you can just stack a schedule, even if you lose, and have 1 or 0 wins and be a playoff team because your schedule's hard. I'm a strength of schedule guy, but that's a step beyond reason. You got to win so many games, generally speaking. And it does feel like the way that format was, it didn't really require winning. And not requiring winning is a little controversial, but yeah, you have to let the governing body govern.
Yeah. Well, I just like, even in that scenario, at least the SAC gets to make their rule, and it applies to everyone, and it's it's not going to change.
You also know going in that for future schedules, maybe you are better having tough games than trying to collect a lot of wins. You may say that that's weird, but they're giving you the rules, and they're the rules that everyone's going to play with. So yeah, let a governing body govern. That actually should not be a hot take. Even if you don't like the governing body needs to govern, or else it is not a governing body by the sense of the definition. That'll do it for this edition here of Mountaineer Report. Again, available everywhere you get your podcast and also on YouTube. You can find all of our coverage of the end of the football season, going towards the bowl game, more recruiting, a lot going on there. The rest of the Mountaineer athletic calendar and basketball season knee deep in it, both men's and women's, and our remote coverage of the Bahama games. We are not there, unfortunately, but we will. One of those on Thanksgiving, so we will enjoy our turkey and also be covering what the Mountaineer men's team does. Again, Cody Nesper, Mike Osti, find us at WV Sports Now, and happy Thanksgiving to everybody out there. Make sure to appreciate this holiday before you fully get on to the rest of the holiday season.